Welcome, everybody, and welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome, fellow deplorables. Welcome, fellow dregs of society. I can't wait till what the liberals call us next. But welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network and around the world on Al Gore's amazing internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, AM, FM 24/7, Leading Edge Radio Network, and now you can see us on the AUN TV network in California. Sharon Angle, our guest.
I'm delighted to be talking with our guest about the economy, right? The economy. It's always about the economy
it's
when
the
we
economy,
start.
Stupid. It's the economy, stupid. So.
Right. And so Dr. Michael Busler is here, an economist, talking about the economy, which is great. And I wanted to ask you about one of the last paragraphs in your article that we've been talking about with Anna Little. And you said, this is an interesting thing because we kind of skirted around the other things that the news wants to talk about. They don't want to talk about the economy and the growth. And if they do, right, they want to just say, no, Dr. Busler doesn't know what he's talking about when he predicts 5% growth. So your last paragraph says that the Trump tariffs are simply a negotiating tool designed to bring our trading partners to the negotiating table. Talk about that, because, you know, this is one of those things where they're saying, oh, he's ruining our economy. These tariff talks are just going to wreck the United States.
Right. So I'm a free market economist. When you mention the word taxes or tariffs, my stomach starts to churn. However, and President Trump, yeah, he really wants a no tariff situation. So here's what happened. He comes into office. He takes a look at the trade agreements we have with, like, the European Union and NAFTA, and he says, wait a minute, these are one-sided agreements. For instance, the Europeans, Germany or France or somebody, makes a car, sells it in the U.S., we charge them a 2.5% tariff. The Americans make a car, sell it in Europe, they charge us a 10% tariff. As a result, they don't buy many of our cars. We buy a lot of theirs. Money flows out of the country to the tune of hundreds of billions, not millions, billions of dollars flowing out of the country every year. It's lopsided. NAFTA is supposed to be a free trade agreement because the U.S. producers are so efficient at producing dairy products, we can sell them at a relatively low price. Well, the Canadian dairy farmers said, wait a minute, they sell something to us for $1, it costs us $3.50. So you're going to have to put a 270% tariff on that before we'll allow you to Americans to sell dairy products in Canada. So what Trump said is, and remember, President Trump is not a politician, he's a business person. A politician will convene a summit in October, we'll re-meet again in March, and then we'll kick the can down the road to the next president. A business person sees a problem, confronts the problem, looks at the options, finds a solution, implements it as quickly as possible. For the very simple reason, the person's a business person, he's concerned with the bottom line. So what does Trump want to do with the trade? He wants to bring people to the table quickly to renegotiate that. As a business person, how do you bring people to the table, particularly if they don't want to come to the table? And Canada and Europe didn't want to because they have such favorable arrangements now. How do you bring them to the table? You create a sense of urgency. So how do you create a sense of urgency? We're slapping big tariffs on everything. So he puts a 25% tariff on the Chinese steel and aluminum. And as a result of that, U.S. is going to buy far less steel and aluminum. They say, well, the Chinese retaliated. They put tariffs on our food products. Again, Trump was very smart about that. The tariffs went on intermediate goods, steel and aluminum. Consumers don't buy that. They go into other goods. So if steel goes up 25% and there's 10% steel in a car, then the whole price of the car is only going to go up a couple of percent. Plus, the U.S. has the ability to make their own steel. They would do it if China didn't manipulate their currency so much so that their products are so cheap. They would have been making the steel. Now, with the tariff, it won't affect consumers that much, and admittedly, there's a little bit of pain involved here, but it won't affect them that much. It'll restart our steel production. Now, China puts tariffs on food. That's an end product that goes directly to consumers. So the whole tariff gets felt by consumers. The prices will go up with food. That's a difficult situation. And China doesn't have the ability to make their own food. That's why they buy it from us. So what the purpose of the tariff is to bring the trading partners to the table today, not next year, not for the next president. Bring them today. Last week, the European Union comes, Trump talks with them a little bit. They both come out and say, we're going to try to get to a position where there's no tariffs on anything. Last Friday or Thursday, the president of Mexico said, we have to speed up this NAFTA renegotiation before it really causes some problems. I believe that Trump being tough like this, even though he's putting on tariffs, and again, I'll say they make my stomach churn when I hear them, but he puts them on, brings people to the bargaining table. He wants to get to no tariffs on anything, which is very difficult to do. But if he can get close to that as quickly as possible, he's going to open up new markets. The soybean and farmers are going to have a problem selling to China because of tariffs. That's true. So he announced last week, I just opened up the market with Europe. We can start selling our products there. So long term, Trump is trying to get to a no tariff, truly free market and fair market. And he wants to do it quickly. And the way to do it is to create a sense of urgency, bring your trading partners to the table as quickly as possible. And that's why he's putting on these tariffs.
And, we got to leave it right there. We're talking with Dr. Bussler about it, but we've run out of time. Tell our listeners how they can find your article and also how they can follow you so they can read more of your articles.
Yeah, so if you go to Facebook, my page is called Funding Democracy, the Economics of Freedom. So if you go to Facebook and just search Funding Democracy, it'll come up. Funding Democracy, the Economics of Freedom. My last, I think, 250 columns are there. I write 1 or 2 a week, so I'd encourage everybody to follow it. You can see everything I have to say.
Thank you so much, Dr. Michael Bussler, for being with us here on Conservative Commandos radio show. We are coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM FM 24/7. And of course, we're now on TV with AUN TV. We'll be right back.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty
Health Share. This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
And thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle. Yes, that Sharon Angle. And yours truly, Rick Trader. Would like to give a shout out to the folks who listen to us on stations in Jacksonville, Tampa, and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Long Beach, California, and now we're part of the AUN television network broadcast in Northern California. And Sharon, our next guest is with us. The honor of the introduction is yours.
It is a pleasure for me to introduce Robert Dorr, who is the Morgridge Fellow in Poverty Studies at the American Enterprise Institute, where his research focuses on how improved federal and state anti-poverty policies and safety net programs can reduce poverty, connect individuals to work, strengthen families, and increase opportunities for low-income Americans and their children. Robert Dorr has testified numerous times before Congress, and his writing has appeared in the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, The Hill, and National Review, among other publications. Robert, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thanks for having me, Sharon.
Well, it's our pleasure, Robert. And we wanted to talk to you about restoring opportunity for the working class. A new bipartisan report highlights shovel-ready policy solutions. I thought we solved all that during the Obama administration. I thought we had shovel-ready jobs and that poverty was a thing of the past.
Well, that's not the case. We did during that period spend a lot of time focusing on the very poor, and I don't think we made much progress there as much as we could have. And we really left out the working class, who had big setbacks in the Great Recession, and have had a kind of a long-term stagnation in wages. And in some respects, their reaction and their disappointment in the way Washington responded to their problems is what led to the election of President Trump.
Well, I think you're exactly right. You know, a lot of that was tongue-in-cheek because we heard that shovel-ready jobs, and yet we didn't see that really materialize at all. And in fact, we're still in some economies suffering from not having enough jobs for this working class, which is define working class for us, will you please?
Well, when we don't really use the term shovel-ready, it sort of was turned out to be not a great term to use after President Obama used it. But the working class for us are those people who graduate from high school but don't have a 4-year bachelor's degree and are working but not making more than about $60,000 a year. And those are Americans who are the backbone of our society. But for a long time, their wages have not grown. Their opportunities have not expanded. Factories have been closed, and they've really gotten the attention from Washington or from state capitals that they deserve, given the fact that they have worked so hard for their country. And our group, a bipartisan group of people from both Democrats and Republican background, got together and met over a period of about a year and a half and said, listen, if we were going to address these issues, what would we do? And we focused on three areas. Work. We wanted to enhance the experience of work in the United States, and I would think that that's probably the biggest sort of driving force. We want to make work pay. We want to make work something that people are encouraged and sometimes required to do when they're seeking public assistance. Then we talk about skills, because the new economy is different, and Americans need new skills to match to the new economy, and we're not really adjusting our education system to meet those demands of different skills. And then finally, we talk about community, because communities are weaker when jobs are weaker and when the economy is weaker and when people feel they're not making as much as their parents made, or not feeling as if they're falling behind where their parents were. And communities in America across the country have really suffered as a result of this, and we want to bring back those elements of civil society. We want to call on businesses and corporations to do a little more in celebrating and promoting and training their workers, including paying them more. And so those are the three big areas: work, skills, and community that we addressed. And the report is just coming out today. We're doing an event at AEI tomorrow, and we'll be talking about it as the new Congress comes back and begins work in Washington in January.
You have some background statistics that are very interesting to me. You said that just 59% of the working class is white, down from 83% in 1981. Why is that, do you suppose, Robert?
Well, there's two things going on, and actually that's some of the population in the United States that's white has moved up. So we have a fairly large upper middle class in America, and they, by the way, do get some benefits in the form of certain kinds of tax credits and tax deductions that only they can claim, because they make enough money to claim those kinds of tax benefits. And so white Americans have moved up there. And then, in addition, minority Americans have moved into the working class. The working class is not about just sort of the white working class of the Rust Belt states. The working class is actually quite diverse. And we are a country that has people who come here and people who can move up. But what's happened is they're kind of stuck in that middle group, because they haven't gotten the skills, or their opportunities in their communities have dwindled. And that's what we're trying to address.
Well, the second statistic is just 74% of the working class men are employed, down from 81%. Why is that?
Well, that is something that we've talked about among scholars on the right for a long time, Nick Eberstadt, Charles Murray. I think one of the ingredients there is the growth of public assistance benefits that are making it possible for men, especially who seek disability benefits, to remain outside of work. But there is also the fact that some people can get a variety of benefits: public health insurance, food stamp benefits. The person they live with can get other benefits. And for that reason, they're able to make enough or have enough so that job at Stewart's or Rite Aid or a place that pays $9 or $10 an hour is not attractive to them. And so they stay home. And when they stay home, they aren't healthy. They engage in behavior and activities that are counterproductive to themselves and their families. But they also are making a statement about the quality of the labor market. And the quality of the labor market does not attract them to jobs that they want to take. So there are a lot of factors there, but none of them are good. A dwindling labor force participation or employment rate for men may be our biggest problem in the United States. Is the old story was men of a certain age worked, everybody worked. And that's not true anymore, and I think that is a big problem.
Well, and that leads to this third statistic. Marriage is declining faster among the working class than in any other group of Americans, down from 74% in 1980 to just 52% today. So talk about that statistic as well. What causes that?
That is particularly problematic for children and for families and for communities, because communities that are built around married two-parent families are just much stronger. And yes, the non-marital birth rate and the extent to which adults are marrying has dropped, and as a result, they don't make that commitment to help each other and to co-parent children if they have children that is so important to themselves and their communities. And we often talk about non-marital birth rates or out-of-wedlock pregnancies, and we often think it's only a problem of African Americans or minorities, and that's really not true. The rate of growth among the working class group is faster than any other group, and every year in the last 5 years, more children have been born to white out-of-wedlock women than African American women. So it's a significant problem, and for me, it's really a significant problem for children, because children really do better if they're raised in a household with a married two parents who are there for the long haul.
That's
and we
why
make recommendations on them.
That's why those statistics are just startling. That's why I wanted you to really discuss those with us. We need to take a break. We've been talking with Robert Dorr, who is a Morgridge Fellow in Poverty Studies at the American Enterprise Institute. We've been talking about restoring opportunity for the working class, and we are coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and also from the AUN TV network, where we are seen in San Francisco, San Rafael, Marin, North Bay, San Jose, Silicon Valley, Santa Rosa Wine Country, Redding, Chico, Sacramento, Monterey, California, and soon in Carson City, Tahoe, and Reno, Nevada. We'll be right back with our guest, Robert Dorr of the American Enterprise Institute, talking about restoring opportunity to the working class with our co-host and in-studio producer, Rick Trader, and I'm Sharon Engel. Don't go away.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty
Health Share. This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America, where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. Hey, folks out there, please like us, friend us, and follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. And if you have a guest suggestion that you'd like to make to us, send it to me, rick@conservativecommandosradioshow.com, just like what's behind me, rick@conservativecommandosradioshow.com. Our guest this segment is Robert Dorr. He works with the American Enterprise Institute, where his research focuses on how to improve federal and state anti-poverty policies and safety net programs to reduce poverty. Robert, thank you for holding through that break. We really do appreciate your time.
No problem. I'm happy to be here.
Robert, as I'm sitting here listening to the conversation with you and Sharon, by the way, very interesting study that you did. It seems the question that's in my mind is about the mentality of people today, especially younger people today, the mentality of pop culture, and the mentality of liberalism. You know, Robert, when I was a kid, which was a million years ago, so long ago, I saw the first rock split into two rocks. I took jobs picking blueberries, picking strawberries, working as a plumber's helper for about $1 an hour, which at that time was probably below any minimum wage that was out there. But I've done okay for myself. And I just have a basic high school education. I don't have a college education. I'm not saying that's the way everybody was going or should go. But Robert, what I think was the success was the secret for my success was picking myself up by the bootstraps and making something out of my life. And does society have a mentality of just wait, there's going to be a government program for you, there's going to be a
I
college
think that's I think that's a very fair comment. I'm in Washington, and we get sucked into this idea that, for every problem facing Americans, there's got to be a government or Washington-based solution. And I plead guilty to a little of that. And I believe that tendency to always come up with something does send a message to Americans that just wait and they'll come up with something, or you're entitled to wait for government to solve your problem.
Right.
So I think that's a legitimate concern. I do think our report and this report is less reliant on government transfer payments, although we do advocate a little of that too, than on trying to transform communities so that people can earn their own success through work and not be reliant on public assistance. It's just a fact that either because of trade policies or the change in automation in American factories, that the economy's changed, and some people have not kept up with the skills they need. They've also been told another thing that I don't think has been that useful, and that is the answer to all their problems is a 4-year bachelor degree. And that sucked a lot of people into making a choice that hasn't worked out for them and has left them in a lot of debt. And instead, what we say in our report is that we've got to change that. We've got to say and have corporations in partnership with community colleges and training programs that help people coming out of high school get skills in a rapid way that are directly related to jobs that pay $60,000, $70,000 a year. If that's what we don't have now, and we need more of. And so it's true that we do advocate changing the way we fund higher post-secondary education programs, so that less of it goes to bachelor degree programs and more of it goes to career and technical education programs, and that is a government policy. But the point of it is to create an environment where people can earn their own success and not be dependent on government.
Well, Robert, at one point I was invited to speak to a high school group. It was a group of children with learning disabilities. And I sat there that night and I listened to the speakers talk, and There were from a lot of government programs talking about what classes you could take, what programs you could get into. And at the end of the evening, I says, there's a program here that hasn't been talked about that if you use it and don't quit on it, it will never fail you. And that is a program of self-reliance. And
I agree with that, and I think you're right that we don't send that message enough. I have the same experience when I worked in programs in New York, and again, I worked in programs, so I'm a bureaucrat, and I'm guilty of that. But I can remember we had a guy coming to talk to us who had come out of prison and had done very well, and somebody asked him, what was the key? How did you get ahead and learn to get a job and get started? What was the key factor? And of course, all the people who ran programs leaned in because they thought he was going to say it was some special trick that they did. And he said the key that made the difference, that really got me going, was recognizing that I had control over my own life, that it would take my effort to make a difference. So I completely agree with you that we need to always stress that personal responsibility and self-reliance is the first step to advancing yourself. We may do some things to help you a little bit and to make it so there aren't barriers, but we're not going to ignore the fact that if you aren't willing to take a step on your own, that you're not going to succeed, and it's just a fact. And so I agree with you, and I do acknowledge that when I get into these bipartisan groups and I get around a lot of liberals and Democrats, I get sucked into another, policy prescription from Washington, and there is some of that in this report. But on the other hand, there are some things that we can do that can promote more employment and higher wages by improving skills, for instance, by changing trade policies, by improving environmental regulations so they aren't so cumbersome and get in the way of businesses. And that's in the report as well.
Right. One question, and by the way, I was very glad to hear you say that a 4-year degree isn't necessarily an answer today, because we see a lot of the 30-year-olds living in their mom and dad's basement. And when you talk about things that government can do, maybe to help businesses and help people learn skills, get good jobs, what about apprenticeship programs? What about tax benefits to businesses who have or will develop apprenticeship programs for kids maybe that don't want to go to college or maybe like working with their hands?
Absolutely, and we call for those things in our report. We call for different ways to get businesses to be more willing to provide apprenticeships and training programs to workers who have one skill but really need another, or are not interested in 4-year bachelor degree programs. And so we absolutely agree with that. And we also make some recognition of the importance of manufacturing in the United States. Manufacturing is not as big an employer as it used to be, but it still is an important employer, and it's an important employer for this population of working class Americans who want to work with their hands, who want to work and make something. And so that's why we also make, we make recommendations that we think would allow for us to make more things here in the United States.
One of the things, and I wish we had more time with you, Robert, I really do, but you and Sharon touched on it earlier, and you have it in your report. Make work pay, expand the earned income tax credit to childless workers, and reform the benefit so as not to be penalized and to discourage marriage.
Right.
Wow. I think that, and you and Sharon talked about that earlier, and I really want to end our conversation on that note because, Robert, I think this is something else that modern society, liberalism, or the pop culture is saying, hey, you don't have to be married anymore. Robert, one more time, how important is marriage?
It's so important. Marriage is so important to the effective and positive raising of children. Some single parents are successful, and God bless them. But overall, on average, families do much better inside a two-parent relationship. And children prosper when they have both parents there for the long haul. And we need to be clear and honest about that to Americans. And it would do a lot, I think, if we could bring down the non-marital birth rate and the extent to which high percentages of children are raised in single-parent families, we would make a lot of progress on the problems we face. And on the issue of benefit programs like the Earned Income Tax Credit that provide a little extra so that wages can rise through a wage subsidy or a supplement. We don't want to do that sort of program in a way that makes it easier for people to say, well, I don't need to get married. I don't need to make that partnership with another person and raise children, because if I do that, I'll lose the benefit. And that's what a marriage penalty would do. It makes people say, why should I get married? Because if I get married, I'm going to lose this welfare payment. That's a bad thing. We don't want that, and we recommend against that in our report.
Robert Dorr, American Enterprise Institute, we want to thank you so much for joining us. Please tell our audience how they can read your report and also find out more about the work you do and the work of the American Enterprise Institute.
Sure. It's the AEI.org, AEI.org, and go there and you'll see our report is on it, Work, Skills, and Community, Restoring Opportunity for the Working Class. And then I also have a section on our Poverty Studies program. We produce work on these issues, which focuses on self-reliance and helping people move up through their own efforts. And it's all there, and we put stuff out every week. And I hope your listeners will take a look at it, because I think they'll like it.
Robert Dorr, again, we want to thank you so much for joining us. Take care. God bless.
All right. Same to you. Bye-bye.
And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't go away. Sharon and I will be right back with more after this break.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty
Health Share. This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader. And if you'd like to suggest a guest, we always love to get our listeners' opinions. But if you'd like to suggest a guest, please email me at rick@conservativecommandosradioshow.com. And we'll do our best to get them on. And Sharon Engel, we do have our next guest with us. Please welcome her to the show.
It's a pleasure to introduce Liz Peek, who is a Fox News contributor and a columnist for The Hill and FoxNews.com. She's a weekly guest on several Fox Business shows, including Varney and Company, Making Money with Charles Payne, After the Bill, Evening Edit. Prior to becoming a journalist, Liz was a top-ranked research analyst covering oil field companies and director of international research for her firm. Liz, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thanks, Sharon. Delighted to be with you.
Well, it's our delight to have you, and we asked you to come and talk about your latest article, Trump Scores Big Wins at the G20. This is a big deal, isn't it, Liz, actually, because he's kind of turning things right on upside down with this World Trade Organization as his top White House priority. Talk to us about how this G20 summit has changed things.
Well, obviously the big issue going into the G20 was the trade relationship between the United States and China. Many months ago, the United States had sent to China a list of demands or requirements that we wanted in order to not impose further tariffs on a good deal of the trade between China and the U.S. And basically, we had been in a sort of stalemate. China hadn't really responded to those. This is the first time that Xi Jinping, the president of China, and President Trump had been in the same room together, actually, or sat down together anyway, in almost a year. It was in November last year that they last met. And so there was alternating high hopes and considerable pessimism about what might transpire. The high hopes was because I think everybody knows that China's economy is being battered by the tariffs that are already in place. The growth has slowed, manufacturing has slowed, exports have dropped, their stock market has taken a big hit, their yuan has taken a big hit. So clearly their economy is being buffeted by these trade barriers that Donald Trump has thrown up. So it was pretty much expected at some point that Xi Jinping, though very eager to save face, was going to at least engage in some sort of conversation with the United States. The pessimism came from the fact that the lineup of people going to represent the United States included Peter Navarro, who is considered the real hardliner on trade in this administration, and John Bolton. Both of those folks were at the dinner, and both are very, very skeptical of China. So, look, this is a huge bilateral trade system between China and the United States. It does not help U.S. businesses who have come to rely on China as a big part of their supply chain, to not know what things are going to cost, to not know whether China is going to throw up problems in terms of being able to get things out of the country, or that we are in terms of getting things here. It was kind of a mess. And what was sort of discouraging was that President Trump's done such a bang-up job of boosting our economy with lower taxes and also some deregulation of key industries, that you kind of hated to see the growth begin to wane because of these trade wars. Now, having said that, I am totally in favor of taking on China. China has been, for decades, cheating Americans, cheating American workers and businesses by stealing our intellectual property. This is not a talking point. This is not a political game. This is a serious issue that's gone on for years and has accounted for hundreds of billions of dollars in lost intellectual property being basically taken over by China illegally. So it is, I think, a fight worth fighting. But that said, there are costs to all fights, and it was beginning to cost this administration to have this trade war going on, because global growth was slowing down a little bit. Companies were beginning to talk about higher costs, in part because of the Chinese tariffs and also because the tariffs that Trump had put on steel and aluminum. I do think it was important, and it was sort of high time to see something constructive come of all that. I'm hopeful that the Chinese will follow through. I'm sure they're not going to deliver everything we want in the next 90 days, but I think they're pretty confident that President Trump will indeed move to 25% tariffs from the current level of 10 if there is no progress. I think they underestimated his resolve early on. I think they felt that coming into the midterm elections, he was going to be worried about the impact of this trade war on our economy and on our stock market, and it certainly has taken a toll on the market. But I think they now understand that he's pretty serious about this. So, I think it's a tremendous open door.
I'm glad that you mentioned the idea that China isn't altogether to be trusted, I guess. I have a brother who has a company that he has several patents with, and he said they lie, they steal, they're very difficult to do business with. And the bottom line of this that was really interesting to me was that there is a provision, if you will, at the bottom of this all that says if they prevaricate. Can you tell what the consequences of that prevarication is going to be?
Well, then I think we roll out the 25% tariffs that Trump had been arguing, and he's been threatening, and he's also threatened to slap tariffs on more Chinese exports, or imports into the United States, and so I think it's going to be a pretty close monitoring of the efforts that they make, and I think that as I said earlier, I think the administration's pretty intent on punishing China if they don't follow through. China has obviously in the Chinese culture, it's very important to save face, but I think something that has not really been reported on, but I think it is true, that in the weeks leading up to this summit, Xi Jinping has been sort of preparing the ground for concessions. And they don't have to be called concessions. They don't have to really be viewed in that context. And if the Americans are smart, and they are smart, they won't single any kind of measures out as being sort of capitulation. They will instead recognize them or hail them as follow-ons to promises that Xi Jinping's been making in recent appearances to open the economy, to have a more open trading system, etc. He's been talking about that a lot, and it's all been sort of, frankly, baloney because they aren't doing any of those things. But in a way, it occurred to me today, as I say, I don't think really we're paying much attention to this. It's been a way for him now to do some things, for example, giving more licenses to financial services companies that want to operate in China, or making it easier to have to open a business in China, to move a plant there or something without having a 50-50 local partner. And that has been one of the big sticking points. When you have a 50-50 joint venture partner, they basically have access, as you can imagine, to your manufacturing techniques, your materials inputs, all those kinds of things, which are intellectual capital. That's when they talk about the forced transfer of intellectual capital, that's what people are talking about, that they basically demand that you hand over all that stuff to your partner. So I think, in a funny way, I think maybe Xi has been preparing the ground for more accommodation of American demands, and hopefully that's what's going to happen.
Well, I'm glad you went into that in a little more detail, because that exactly is a problem for us here in the U.S. But another problem that kind of came up with this GM closure of their plants in Ohio and Indiana was that the president criticized them and said, why don't you close your stuff in China and Mexico? Can you see, is there a nexus here? Is there a connection, if you will, between that statement and what happened at the G20?
Well, one thing Trump tweeted after the G20 was that China is going to reduce or eliminate their import tariffs on cars. And so the car companies all went up today. I don't know if that's true. I think the tariff is 40%. I don't, how would I know? But if that's something that they're talking about, that would certainly be a plus for companies like General Motors. in terms of making it often a lot easier to make things here and ship them there. Now, obviously, it's still going to be cheaper to produce in China, but if you have a product, let's say a Cadillac, that's pretty popular here and pretty popular in China as well, there are a lot of advantages to manufacturing in the United States. I mean, you do have a rule of law that you don't in China. You cannot really trust the Chinese to abide by contract law, and they could change their import tariffs and import fees at any moment. Plus, they throw up all kinds of bogus things about trademarks and compliance on various kinds of demands that that are just sort of convenient ways to keep stuff out of their country. So, but anyway, the bottom line is it might be that a company like General Motors will be in a better position to manufacture here and export if indeed we begin to reduce all these tariffs. I mean, one thing people really need to understand is that Trump is not wrong. Other countries really do charge us higher import tariffs than we charge them. It is not a level playing field. And that is really at the heart of what we're doing all this for, what he's doing all this for. Whether we'll actually see the numbers ever sort of stack up, I doubt, because China continues to maintain that they're a low-income nation, underdeveloped nation, which is ridiculous, of course, but that is the premise under which they can get away with a lot of this stuff.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned the disparity between the tariffs, because in your article you do talk about the European car tariff as opposed to how we charge the Europeans. So there is a real disparity here. I'll just read this. Maybe you can kind of go further with this and also enlighten us on Chinese tariffs and maybe around the world, because this is not just Europe, as we're pointing out in your article. This has global effects, if you will. But you say there is no plausible reason why we charge imported European cars a tariff of only 2.5%, while the EU imposes a 10% tax on cars exported from our country. Go ahead, Liz.
Well, I think that kind of speaks for itself. Yes, it's not level. We do charge a 25% tariff, I should say, on light trucks coming out of the EU, but for the vast car market, we are disadvantaged, and there really isn't any particular reason for that except history and the fact that no one ever demanded it be changed. I mean, I think at the end of the day, that's what's sort of refreshing and encouraging about the road that Trump is traveling, is that he's willing to challenge everything, whether it's been in place for a year or 50 years. If it doesn't seem right to him, he's willing to talk about changing it. And all of these changes were down to the benefit of the United States. So, people should be kind of on board with this. I understand there's some pain and suffering right in the beginning, particularly for farmers and others who have seen their exports drop. But the truth is, this is good for this country.
We need to go to a break. We've been talking with Liz Peek, who is a Fox contributor, about her article, Trump Wins Big or Scores Big Wins at the G20. We'll be right back after this break with our in-studio producer, Rick Trader. I'm Sharon Engel, our guest, Liz Peek, and we are coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. We'll be right back.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes. Now, people say, why didn't you report it to the authorities? Well, they were the ones doing it.
The integrity of one man, one vote doesn't apply at the Texas state legislature. There is no way to know if your representatives are voting for themselves.
Hartman, a Republican, reaches back to vote for Democrat Oliveira. Democrat Matt Reynolds votes for Republican England.
2 out of 3 voters nationwide believe that voter fraud is a serious problem in the U.S. today.
The process is rigged.
Both sides of the aisle are guilty.
Florida now has to tell the Department of Justice whether the state will comply with DOJ's demand to stop purging thousands of people from its voter rolls.
We have the sloppiest election system of any industrialized democracy.
Philadelphia flagged 50,000 duplicate registrations, so just think how many more slipped through.
It's almost impossible to detect. How do you get caught? You only get caught if you confess.
Election corruption is deeply embedded in America. Quote, election fraud is a crime that usually pays, unquote, writes Tracy Campbell in his book, Deliver the Vote, A History of Election Fraud, an American political tradition from 1742 to 2004. In 1742, the first Prime Minister of Britain in the American colonies, Robert Walpole, was forced to resign.
We have a right not to have our vote canceled out by someone who shouldn't be voting, someone who's an illegal alien, someone who's a felon not eligible to vote, someone who doesn't exist. If they vote, they cancel your vote out as much as if you're prevented from voting.
If this is going to be fixed, it's going to have to be a citizen effort. It comes down to, it's the same old question, if not now, when? If not us, then who?
This is huge. This is about the democracy and the principles of the United States of America. People say, but why you? Why you? Why not? And if it starts with a fireman, if it starts with a sanitation worker, if it starts with a teacher or a nurse or a caretaker of the elderly, then so be it. It's got to start somewhere. But it's time we come together and fix this problem once and for all.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
Serious allegations of voter fraud, the claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
People die and fall for the right
So it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say, not on our watch.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
And thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. Our guest this segment is Fox News contributor and columnist for The Hill and FoxNews.com, and that is our Liz Peek. Liz, thank you for holding through that break. We really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Happy to be with you.
Liz, we're discussing your article, Trump Scores Big Wins at the G20 Summit. You write in this article, it was an all-around win-win for the president who needed one. Liz Peek, how bad did Donald Trump need this win?
Well, look, I think he's had a tough couple of weeks. Obviously, the Mueller investigation kind of got very live last week. Michael Cohen's plea deal was, just sort of another shot across the bow. And in addition, you have Democrats who recently took over the House of Representatives, which was not a great surprise. But now threatening all kinds of subpoenas and investigations and impeachment processes and so forth. Now that they have taken over the House, they can do all those things. And I think it's really going to be a terrible time for the president and for the White House. And what he can do best to deflect all of this criticism and sort of this antagonism on the left is just kind of keep motoring ahead with his agenda and producing the kind of growth in the economy that, voters are pretty excited about. I mean, the truth is consumer sentiment is at an 18-year high because unemployment is at a decades level low, and jobs are plentiful, wages are going up. All these things are very positive. But unfortunately, the left has just decided the only thing they really have to sell is hatred of Donald Trump. So, they're going to be piling on in a lot of ways that are going to be extremely unpleasant and uncomfortable, I think, for the White House. But in addition, as I mentioned earlier, you've had some signs that the trade battles that he has engaged in has lowered growth in the United States a little, not much. But in China, definitely, and a little bit in Europe. What we had a year ago was synchronized global growth. We don't really have that anymore. The United States is a little engine that could. It's the really biggest, fastest growing economy out there. But I think it was just time that we began to see some benefit. Even if it's only future benefit from the trade war that's been going on. It's all very well and good to be aggressive, antagonistic towards China and everything. I agree with all of that, but it has to have a point. And I think there was no game plan, or at least we hadn't really been told of the game plan, and I think we needed to know what it was.
Liz, in addition to the trade issue with China, apparently there was some advances made on a couple other fronts. Number one with fentanyl. Number two, that Xi also vowed to help denuclearize North Korea. So I think they're important issues too.
They are certainly important issues. And again, the proof will be in the pudding. But look, President Xi is the person who can really make something happen in the North Korean, in the Korean Peninsula. Now, I got to say, backing up, there's already stuff going on in the Korean Peninsula. You have a much more open line of communication between North and South, and has been the case for years. And I think, though, we're all aware that North Korea made a lot of promises, and President Trump came out of his head-to-head with North Korea promising that things were going to get better there, and North Korea had committed to denuclearization. Well, what we have seen since is that they are still working on their nuclear sites. They're probably still developing weapons. And so the only country really that has any sway with North Korea is China. All of just about the entire export of North Korean goods goes through China through various subversive ways. But what happened? It really, after the Mar-a-Lago meeting last year between Trump and Xi, China did join in, I think for the first time really, a very hard embargo against North Korea exports, and it had an impact. I mean, North Korea's economy just, was crushed, and that's why they came to the bargaining table, and that's why we had the head-to-head meeting with Trump and Kim. So China's influence there cannot be overstated. It is completely essential to have them on board. And then, what happened is Trump kind of said, well, now we've got this agreement, everything's fine. And basically all the bad guys started trading with North Korea again because they felt like the pressure was off, the spotlight was off, right. and that includes China. So if they mean it and they begin to reinforce the embargo against North Korea exports, that would be huge. And it would, again, I think, require North Korea to make some changes that would be good. As to fentanyl, this is a very, very deadly drug, and most all of it's coming from China. And to have, pardon?
I said I did not know that.
Oh, yeah, it's like 70 or 80%.
Wow.
And the damage being done by it is just gigantic across America. It's a very deadly drug. So for them to agree that it's a controlled substance or whatever the language was, punishable by with severe penalties for producing and exporting and so forth, that's a pretty big deal. And so if they begin to actually help America police the export of that product, that would be an incredible win for us.
Liz, do you have a minute for one off-topic question?
Sure, of course.
Your reaction to GM?
Well, look, being in the auto business in the United States is not easy. I think General Motors kind of placed their bets in the wrong places. I think they felt that high oil prices were high and going higher, and that what people were going to want were small, light cars that had great fuel efficiency and electric cars. I sort of think there's a tie-in with Macron here. Everyone thinks that consumers are really buying into the whole climate change scenario, and they're ready to sort of commit personally to behaviors that might down the road be helpful to curbing emissions, but they're not ready yet. And the truth is Americans like their big, heavy SUVs. That is what's selling.
Right.
They're selling partly because gas prices aren't as high as they were a couple of years ago. Gas prices have come down about $1.50 a barrel, $1.50 a gallon versus a couple of years ago. That's pretty huge to consumers, and it really does amazingly impact what kind of car they want to own. So what's hot this year? Light trucks and SUVs, and GM just simply, bet the ranch on small kind of subcompacts, which no one's buying.
And the American taxpayer gets caught footing a lot of the bill. I'll tell you what
Yeah.
I thought when I heard about GM. A little statement, this guy, I can't remember his name, but he said something about Osama bin Laden being dead and GM alive. I kind of thought of that guy. Liz Peek, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Please tell our audience how they could follow your work and read your articles.
Well, thank you very much. I have a website, lizpeek.com, P-E-E-K, and I'm also on Twitter, and I do tweet, and I do respond to tweets. So it's Liz Peek is my Twitter handle, and I'm encourage people to follow me there because I always do tweet out everything I write. But thank you for asking.
Liz Peek, again, thank you for joining us. Take care, and God bless.
You too. Thanks so much, Rick.
Bye-bye. And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
Together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Engel. Yes, that's Sharon Engel, and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or conservativecommandosradioshow.com. And Sharon, we have our guest with us. Please make him feel welcome.
Well, it's an honor to introduce Stephen Moore, who formerly wrote on the economy and public policy for the Wall Street Journal and a former member of its editorial board. He's a distinguished visiting fellow for Project Economic Growth at the Heritage Foundation, and he was the founding president of Club for Growth and a co-founder of the Committee to Unleash Prosperity. He is also the co-author with Art Laffer of Trumponomics, Inside the America First Plan to Revive Our Economy. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show, Steve.
Hi, Sharon. Great to be with you. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. And we ask you on to talk about an article that you wrote. The Trump boom is no mere sugar high. The tax cuts primed the productive economy for long-term growth, not short-term buzz. I'm so glad you're here because even my financial advisor is saying, oh, this is short-lived. Don't put your money in the market. Tell us why they're wrong, Steve.
Well, look, there's always a difference between the financial markets and the real economy. And, you know, I can't predict where the financial markets are going. If I could, I wouldn't be on the show. I'd be on a beach in Tahiti. But, look, I do think that the fundamentals of the U.S. economy are really strong. I mean, the real economy. I'm talking about construction, manufacturing, industrial production. Look at the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years. Consumer confidence numbers came out the other day, near an all-time high. Jobs report last month for 155,000 jobs, very solid with really good gains in blue-collar workers. So the point I was making in that piece, Sharon, is that the reason the sugar high argument doesn't work is, well, two reasons. Number one, you know, this is Keynesian economics that these people believe in, that somehow budget deficits by the government somehow stimulate the economy. But if that were true, then we would have had 10% growth under Barack Obama, because all he did was borrow through the roof, and instead we got very low growth. Deficits actually, detract from the economy. They don't increase the economy. But the other issue is that a lot of people think that the tax cuts that we passed, those historic tax cuts that Larry Kudlow and I and Art Laffer helped put together for Donald Trump, that those are going to go away. But they don't go away. Well, eventually they may, but they're not going away next year. Most of those tax cuts don't expire until at least 2014 or 15, 5 years ago from now. So why would that cause a slowdown in the economy now?
Well, I'm glad you're talking about this a little, because we're inching up on a $22 trillion debt. Is that true? Or have we made some gains on that debt and we're just not getting that reporting as well? Because, it seems like we're having a difficult time getting the truth about the economy.
So basically, number one, government spending is out of control. And, can't really blame that on the Democrats too much because the Republicans have controlled the House and Senate for the last 2 years. We have a Republican president. It's a spending problem, right? You know that, Sharon. You talk about it all the time. It's not a revenue problem. In fact, even with our tax cuts that we passed, almost exactly a year ago today, with give or take a few days, those tax cuts in 2018, did you know this, guys, that we had the highest amount of tax revenues raised into the federal government in history? Does that sound like we have a revenue problem?
No.
I mean,
that sounds great, actually, and it actually.
Yeah, so the problem is, Sharon, that the spending went up by $300 billion. Now, Ronald Reagan, who I was also privileged to work for, used to say, you don't give a drunk, an alcoholic, another drink. And that's what we keep doing with all of these spending bills. I had the occasion to see the president yesterday in the Oval Office with Art Laffer, and we had about a half hour of his time. And I said to him, I said, Mr. President, I love the job you're doing, but will you please start vetoing some of these spending bills? And I think that's coming down the pike.
Well, he had Pelosi and Schumer in.
Yes, and I met with him right after that meeting, and he was in a joyful mood. And I told him, Mr. President, Nancy Pelosi is just the gift that just keeps on giving. I mean.
So he tells her that he has no problem shutting down the government. Is this part of his stop the spending arrangement? That it only makes sense that somehow, as you said, Ronald Reagan said, "Don't give them more money. They need to learn how to curb their appetite."
So I don't think that we're going to have a government shutdown. I kind of wish Trump would basically say, look, you've got to give me funding for the wall. I mean, isn't it amazing? When you think about this, we have a $4 trillion government, $4 trillion. I've been in this town 30 years. I've never seen Democrats not want to spend money on anything except for this wall. It's the only thing they don't want to spend money on, right? I mean, they want to spend money on, illegal immigrants getting food stamps and, fruit fly research and, billions of dollars of subsidies for solar energy, but they don't want to spend a penny to secure our border. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, and that's what he's asked for, is a secure border, and then he showed them how they can pay for that secure border, but they're just very uninterested in it. I wonder if they're interested in paying those migrants the $50,000 a piece that they're now demanding at our border. What do you think about that?
That's a higher priority than building the wall. But so, look, I think Trump would be I don't think he's going to do it because, frankly, we've got a remember, we're in a lame duck session right now, so the Republicans still run the House and Senate. So it's a little, difficult, again, to blame this on the Democrats. Shame on the Republicans for sending him a spending bill that doesn't have the funding for the wall. But I think there are going to be a lot of showdowns next year on the budget. I think the Democrats, look, these were Democrats in the House. Oh, my goodness. They are pretty radical in what they want. I mean, they want 100% renewable energy, shut down our oil and gas and coal industries. They want Medicare for everyone. Sure, they want a 30 trillion with a T, $30 trillion new entitlement program, Medicare for all. Where's the money going to come from to pay for all of this stuff?
Well, and 30 trillion then just goes on top of the 22 trillion we're already in debt, doesn't it?
Exactly. It's not like we're flush with cash in Washington right now.
That's amazing. But let's get back to the economy and how it's grown. We were really in a depression, in a recession sort of situation under Obama. We couldn't get much above 1%, and now we're at 4%. 4% doesn't sound like much, but talk to us in real terms about what 4% really means.
Well, last 6 months we had 4% growth. I think it's going to slow down to about 2.5% growth for the quarter that we're in right now. That's a decent number. I'd like it to be higher, but for the full year, 2018, we're going to be at about 3.3% growth, which is phenomenal compared to where we were under Obama. I mean, remember his last year in office, we grew at only 1.5%. So every percentage point increase in growth, you get $3 trillion more revenue over a decade. You see this in, everywhere I go. from coast to coast. Manufacturing doing great. Construction is doing great. I mean, construction everywhere. I don't know where you guys live, but all you see is cranes in the air, building buildings, warehouses, factories. You know, I joked to the president, half joke. I said, "Stop creating so many jobs. We don't have enough. We don't have enough workers to fill all these jobs." So it's a good, strong economy. And I think what's ironic is, so we get these blockbuster numbers a few months ago, like shattering every record. And so now the numbers are coming down a little bit from these all-time highs. You see, the economy is slowing down. It's like, well, it couldn't, you can't stay at record highs forever. I mean, but I don't see a recession on the horizon anytime soon. I think we're going to see continued 3 to 4% growth. The president thinks so. He told me as much yesterday. He said, I don't see any slowdown. He's concerned about the Fed. He's really pissed off at the Fed for raising interest rates and taking the punch bowl away from this party just when it's getting going. And I think he's right about that. I think the Fed made a big mistake in raising interest rates just as we're getting wages to rise and all the jobs in. That's what we wanted to create.
Well, we're going to need to talk about that on the other side of the break.
Okay.
We are coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. And now you can watch us on TV at AUN TV Network in Northern California. We'll be right back after this break with our guest, Stephen Moore. We're talking about the economy. I'm Sharon Angle, and my co-host is Rick Trader.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader. Our guest this segment is Stephen Moore. Stephen has a new book out, Trumponomics, Inside the America First Plan to Get Our Economy Back on Track. Stephen, thank you for holding through that break. We really do appreciate your time.
Good to be with you, Rick. It's always a pleasure.
Stephen, I don't know a lot about the economy, but the one thing that I thought was it's the economy stupid. And with you say that the gains in the economy, the construction, manufacturing is up. Why did the Democrats win the midterms?
Well, I think Republicans did a very poor job of connecting the dots and explaining to people that this economic renaissance that we're seeing in America today, it didn't happen by accident. If you look at my book, on Trumponomics, you'll see a bunch of charts that show literally within 48 hours of the election, November 7 of 2016, which, by the way, might have been the best night of my life. On that night, look at what happened the next day. The stock market went through the roof. Consumer confidence, investor confidence, small business confidence. Everybody felt a new optimism that we had elected a businessman president. Look, I'm not here to criticize Barack Obama, but, he was a community organizer. He didn't know anything about business and about hiring people and how an economy works, and it showed. He gave us the worst recovery from a recession since the Great Depression. I think part of the thing is Republicans didn't connect the dots and say, it's these policies on regulation and on tax cuts that caused the incredible expansion. It's so interesting to me that where Republicans actually gained seats in working class areas around the country. The Republican Party today is the party of the working class. There's no doubt about it. The Democrats are the party of the super rich and the lowest income areas. And so, the policies have worked for those blue collar Americans who used to call themselves Democrats, but now realize the Democrats don't stand for working class Americans. And I think Trump, if we continue with this strong economy for the next 2 years, Rick, I think you're talking about, Trump winning 40 states in a landslide re-election, because it still is the economy stupid when it comes to presidential elections.
Steve, as you mentioned, the day after the election in 2016, the stock market started shooting up. Conversely, after the 2018 midterms, the stock market has been pulling back. Is that because the Democrats won? I mean, is it as simple as that to connect the dots?
Maybe a little bit, but I think mostly it's the Fed. I think the economy was booming. You saw the stock market rising at a really nice, steady pace. And then the Fed came along and literally just sucked the oxygen out of the economy, not just with their rate increase by announcing, by the way, rates are going to go up and up and up and up and up and up. Well, no, who wants to invest in the stock market in that kind of environment? The Fed has to stop. Don't raise interest rates any longer. Let the economy expand. Let's we want wages to rise. The Fed thinks that growth causes inflation. As Lapp would say, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. When the economy produces more goods and services, the price of goods and services falls. They don't rise. It's like if there are more apples, what happens to the price of apples, Rick? They go down. They don't go up. But these numbskulls in the Federal Reserve, only an Ivy League economist would believe half of the crap that they believe.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, our guest is Stephen Moore. We're discussing an article he wrote, The Trump Boom is No Mere Sugar High, and also his book, Trumponomics, Inside the America First Plan to Get Our Economy Back on Track. Stephen, in your article, you wrote, and you're referring to Bill Clinton, the fastest growth rate over the past 3 decades was recorded in Bill Clinton's second term. I know I'm paraphrasing, but how does President Trump's first 2 years compare to, as you say, the fastest growth rate being in the Clinton administration? How does it compare?
Well, it's so funny you should ask me that question, because I just had a meeting with Newt Gingrich. As you know, Newt Gingrich was the Speaker of the House that created that Republican revolution. I see you, nodding your head, Sharon. You remember that. So it was the Republican Congress that really forced Clinton to move more to the middle, which he did, I think, very effectively. I wish Obama had done that. He never did that. Obama never moved to the middle once in 8 years. And when we got that spending down, the economy boomed, and that was because these Republican budgets really cut spending. And also, as we had prosperity, we got revenues in. Trump is doing that too. I mean, as I said, we've got record revenue growth, not the record amounts of revenues into the federal government right now. And so I think so far, I mean, if you had told me, 2 years ago, we'd have the strong economy that we have today, none of the liberal economists thought it was possible. I mean, they all thought, remember this, Sharon? They all thought that Trump was going to create a second Great Depression. And now they say, oh, well, yeah, the economy's great now, but it's going to be terrible next year. These are the same people who said we couldn't get to 3 to 4% growth in the first place.
Steve, also, you're right. The biggest threat to the economic boom and financial markets today is the deflationary Federal Reserve and the specter of a global trade war. Can we also add the Democrat Congress to this? Yeah, we can. I mean, the only reason I didn't put that in there is because I can't imagine Donald Trump signing into law any of these dingback ideas that people like Alexander Cortez and these people, did you see they want to go to 100% renewable energy? I mean, that would literally put millions of people out of work. It would double the cost. Do you see what's going on? Are you guys watching what's happening in Paris now? You've got people in the streets with pitchforks because they have to pay $5 and $6 a gallon for gasoline because of these stupid green energy policies.
do we want to bring that here to the United States? We're going to have hundreds of thousands of people marching in the streets saying we're not going to pay.
Maybe we should. Maybe that's what it's
maybe that's what we need.
Maybe. Hey, Stephen, I know you got to go, but you talked about Pelosi being the gift that keeps on giving. I think it's going to be Ocasio-Cortez for the next 2 years.
I want her on TV every single night, every network. Just let the American people see the kinds of hear what she is saying. I mean, it's very frightening. And by the way, she's got a big following. I mean, we have two very conflicting visions in America today. You know, the vision that people like Sharon Angle and I share, which is free enterprise, freedom, liberty, get government off the back of business. And these young people that come out of, I think we have to blame ourselves for putting them through 16 years of the public school system, and they think socialism is the way to go.
Steve, look what I got. I got your book. And
hey,
I'm going
if you
to read
want to stimulate the economy, buy the book for yourself. And if you want to make all your liberal friends angry, buy the book for them. And maybe they'll learn something about how to really grow an economy and create prosperity.
Stephen Moore, I want to thank you so much for joining us on Conservative Commandos. Please tell our audience how to follow your work, read your articles, and buy your book.
And just heritage.org. The book is Trumponomics. And have a Merry Christmas, guys. Great to be with you.
Thank you so much. Take care and God bless. And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Trader and Sharon Angle. Don't go away. We will be right back.
Buy a new car. Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients, sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle, or yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcasts of our shows, you can always check out our websites, CCRShow.com. At CCRShow.com, you'll be able to hear the radio version. For the television version, please check out ConservativeCommandosRadioshow.com. That's ConservativeCommandosRadioshow.com. radioshow.com. And Sharon, our next guest is with us. Please welcome him.
It's an honor to introduce Brian McNichol, who's a lead writer for the Accuracy in Media. He has worked with the Heritage Foundation, the Competitive Enterprise Institute, the Galen Institute, and a variety of other policy organizations in Washington, and served as the Director of Communications for the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. Brian McNichol, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you. Good to be with you again.
It's great to have you, Brian. You've written an article about the Republicans. The WAPO report Republicans are boxed in by Trump standing up for the border wall. Really? Are they really boxed in? Talk to us a little bit about this, Brian.
Well, that was when that interview, when that happened, where you had the meeting in the Oval Office with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, and he told them, I will own closing the government over the border funding. The media rushed out without thinking, because there wasn't time to think and say, Trump got schooled, Schumer tricked him into saying exactly what he wanted him to say. Now the Republicans are all in a mess because they can't vote for it and they can't vote against it, and they don't know if they can get it across the finish line. And now, the House is sitting up there saying, we have the votes, we can pass it right now. So then you have to get to 60 votes in the Senate, but then the pressure to keep it, Trump can say what he wants, but the pressure to keep the government open at that point falls on the Senate. The Senate, those Democrats who are movable votes. So the whole, their whole thing was how Trump got schooled and how dumb he was and so forth. But now, what has happened since then is Nancy Pelosi has said, there's no way that we will give him his $5 billion. So, for the border wall. So what happens is, that they're stopped now, and it is clearly, it's going to be, this is Trump's price, and the Democrats refuse to pay it, and that's why the government's closed. And so he can say he's not going to blame it on them, but it's now going to be blamed on them.
Well, it sounds like they could pass it before, while they still have this lame duck Congress. They could go ahead and pass it, put it on to the Senate. But there seems to be a reticence on the part of Republicans even. It doesn't surprise me, but is that true, or is it just the media and the Democrats that are wanting to stall this?
Well, I think aside from Jeff Flake and maybe Susan Collins, the rest of the Republican caucus is pretty united on, people in Congress right now are pretty united on strong border security. They all got elected on it. It was Trump's signature issue during the campaign. And I think they're now comfortable for toughening up the border, right? There's been enough votes. There's been enough key decision points where they're all kind of in that camp. And so I think the problem is, how do you get to 60 votes? Because you can't pass it through reconciliation. Pass it straight.
Well, it says that the article says that there were quotes from Senators John Thune, Shelley Moore, and John Cornyn saying that they don't understand where Trump is going with this, and that the shutdown is not favorable. But according to what you're saying, everybody's on board. Let's just get it through the House, and the Senate's ready to go.
Well, first of all, those three senators were asked this, in the first half hour after this meeting was televised. So it's like they didn't know the plan, right? Mm-hmm. It reflects not having had time to talk about it, think about it, right? And second of all, the House has said all along they do have the votes, and they don't understand. A shutdown is not favorable. I don't think anybody in Congress came here to shut it down. And, it's a political risk for everybody. When you get into it, you don't know who's going to win or lose. And a lot of times it's, we think we know when it starts and it goes on a little bit, and who wins and loses changes during the process. So I don't blame them for not wanting to take the risk, right? It's certainly easier in the, politician business, as you know, to reduce risk. But I think that they all, you can't be a Republican right now and stand for re-election if you have not been strong on the border at this point. Would you agree to that? Is there anywhere in the country you could run as a Republican and not be strong on the border?
Well, you would hope that that would be the case, but we've watched some elections here in just the very recent past where they were elected to get rid of Obamacare, and by golly, they got reelected even after making that promise. So I'm pretty cynical out here in the grassroots when it comes to, can we trust our Republican congressmen and senators to do what they were elected to do? And I guess that's why your article is so interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Is that they promised to, more than 1,000 seats, legislatures and Congress, around the nation, changed hands over the issue of Obamacare, eliminating Obamacare. At one point, the Republicans had control of 68 of 99 of the state legislatures. They had control of 38 state houses, governors. Control both houses of Congress, and almost all of that momentum for that came for killing Obamacare, and it ended up taking a judge in Texas to actually do it. Although, for the most part, Obamacare's out of existence anyway. The individual mandate's gone, the employer mandate is gone. It's sort of an exchange for insurance programs now in a way, and the lifting of the minimum for to get into Medicaid. It's mainly a conduit to Medicaid and low-cost insurance policies.
Well, certainly they're doing it right now. Everybody's forming up to choose to make their choices again on insurance, and it doesn't seem to get any better. Each time they do this, the price of insurance just keeps going up, and that seems to be a product of the regulation that's gone on in Washington, D.C., but we digress.
Before you go on, is the cost of health insurance has actually gone down this year. The first time in more than 20 years. Cost of insurance policies has gone down, and part of it is Trump is letting people buy these what they call skinny plans, where it's basically catastrophic with a big deductible, and you can it's for people who are moving from plan to plan. It's kind of a bridge, and he's allowed people to sort of do it semi-permanently. So things are changing on that. It's not like it used to be. There's more market forces working on the price of health insurance now, not necessarily health care itself, but then there has been in a long time.
Well, back to our wall, and whether we can count on our Republican congressmen to do the right thing when it comes to this wall. They don't have too much time left to get this done, and there seems to be some that are just dragging their feet, but you don't think that's going to happen. You think they're going to get this done before the new Congress comes in?
I don't know. It's a strange thing when people lose and they leave town, and people think you can't get them to come back. We've been down this road before, where it's like something can pass if we can get the defeated congressman to come back for the lame duck. And a lot of times it doesn't look like they are, but in the end, the people generally do realize they serve the public, and they generally do come back to Washington and vote. Well, will this be part of it? And, is there any hope of moving this through the Senate? I don't know. I don't know what the Senate, what the Republicans could give the Democrats in the Senate to get 60 votes. But it would be, I think, at some point, it would be something that they would want to get out of the way. Democrats should be wanting to get it out of the way. But, maybe not.
Well, I don't have an inside track to their minds at all. they befuddle me, but we need to go to a.
It's hard to with them.
We need to go to a break, Brian. We need you to stay with us through that break. We're coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. We'll be right back after this short break with our guest, Brian McNichol. We've been talking about Trump's ultimatum on the border wall and whether that will get passed in the lame duck session. We'll also be back with our co-host, Rick Trader, and I'm Sharon Angle.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America, where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
And thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharon Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our website, ccrshow.com or CCRS Network. Please like us, friend us, and follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. Our guest this segment is Brian McNichol. He's a lead writer for the Accuracy in Media website, and we're discussing that Trump's ultimatum on the border wall is boxing in fellow Republicans. Brian, thank you for holding through that break.
Yes, sir.
Well, Brian, you know, they had their opportunity to build the border wall. The Republicans could have done it in the Bush administration. They could have done it earlier during the Trump administration. Maybe this is a good thing for Donald Trump to actually box in these Republicans and make them put their money where their mouth is for a change. What's your take?
Well, one of my takes is Trump has said this, and it sounds kind of offbeat right now, but, you know, he does think ahead on these things, that it might be easier to pass in the new Congress because Democrats will have incentive to make an immigration deal on other stuff. Mm-hmm. For instance, the Dreamers, sanctuary, funding for sanctuary cities and so forth. So there's some stuff out there that he could deal to them that they would be interested in giving him what he wants. Mm-hmm. And, you know, making it both houses. So if they don't do it now, they may well do it on the other side.
And Brian, this word shutdown, you know, we've heard it over the past several years, 2 or 3 times, the quote-unquote government shutdown. But it's not a government shutdown. It's not even a government slowdown. The government continues to operate. It continues to be there. The military continues to be on duty. They continue to be paid. this whole, in my opinion, Brian, this word shutdown is contrived by the liberal media. Am I thinking out too far outside the box here?
Yeah, there's a lot of merit to that. Something like 78% of the government would be unaffected by this if it happens, because there's two things at play. One is, you say, a lot of it is on automatic dial anyway, right? The big three entitlements, which is the biggest share of the government, defense spending and so forth. But on top of that, one of the things Trump set out to do was, instead of having these big omnibus bills at the end of the spending cycles, to pass true appropriations bills. And there are 12 of them. And they've had Congresses that never passed a single actual appropriations bill. But we've passed 7 of the 12 of them this year, which means that more than half the government, the funding is approved, is on its way to where it's supposed to be, and is unaffected by this. So, that makes a lot of difference. He did the right thing there. Government needs to be like that, because, what they end up doing is they say, oh, we'll cut 2% across the board. Well, some things need to be cut 2%. Some things need to be cut none at all. Some things need to be cut 25%. Some things need to be completely eliminated, right? If you don't ever actually do the budget work, if you just keep floating the can down the road, then you actually look at that stuff and see what needs to change. And, he's a manager. He knows there's waste in projects, right? He's a project manager. That's what he does for a living. So, he knows where to go back and look for waste. The instinct with him of where the waste lies, you wouldn't think in the private sector, especially a business like construction, where it's so mobile, would relate to what government does, which is so immobile and permanent. But it really is. The same problems appear in slightly different shapes, but they're easy to find for him. Right? Does that make sense? He's working with, it's knowledge he has as a business guy that other people.
Brian, the other thing is this meeting that took place with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, where Trump said that he'll shut the government down. He'll shut it down unless he gets funding for his border wall. I think that plays very well to his base. Yeah. And in playing well to his base, or playing to his base, this idea of boxing in fellow Republicans, and it seems to me that could this possibly been the plan of Donald Trump all along, to rev up his base, for his base to get on the telephone, to call their members of Congress, to say, work with the president, get this thing done, shut down our government if you have to. Well, let's finally get this done. I mean, it seems to me that one of the reasons that Donald Trump was elected in the first place was on government security. One of the reasons Donald Trump got elected in the first place was his tough guy persona. Real or not, it's people really connected with this tough guy persona, and this meeting in the White House with Pelosi and Schumer is just an extension of that. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think they tried to, use the power of that term, shut down. So it used to carry a lot of power. Oh no, we don't want to do that. Yeah, we're going to work for everything we can, and so forth. And he's like, no, he plays brinkmanship. That's what he's doing with China. He's been willing to, put on tariffs that hurt American industries and that cause some pain here at home to even up the trade scorecard. And now, you see China cut more than in half its tariff on U.S. cars, and its economy has slowed down to like 2% growth. I mean, it's had a major impact on them. We're to the point now where we can keep sanctioning things they send us, but there's very little left for them to sanction of stuff against us, right? So, I mean, Trump can keep putting down the screws almost with impunity, right? And it's kind of the same thing with this. It's like he's got them, against the border wall and against border security and for MS-13 and for fentanyl coming across, Realize 90% of fentanyl comes across the Mexican border from China. So, you know, if you really close that border, if you really make border security work, you know, you change the drug abuse problem in America forever. Fundamentally pull the floor out of the drug abuse. People say that can't be done, but it can. That's like, you know, high school students now, lowest amount of drug use since the 70s. Latest first experience of sex since the 70s. The generation slightly below them in junior high school are the most conservative people that age in 50 years. So
wow, that's
interesting.
Yeah,
it's, you know, the young people are looking at this deal and they're saying they're seeing what Trump saw. Which is, you know, it's fine for the top 1%, and the rest of us have to do.
Hey, Brian McNichol, we got to run, but before we go, please tell our audience how they could follow your work, read your articles, and find out more about Accuracy in Media.
Accuracy in Media is at aim.org. My Twitter feed is at McNicholB, which is McNicollB. And please check us out and look us up.
Brian McNichol, we want to thank you for joining us here on Conservative Commandos. Always appreciate when you can visit with us. I want you to take care. God bless. And Brian, have a Merry Christmas.
Hey, Merry Christmas to y'all too. See you later.
Take care. God bless. And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader. And on the other side, we're going to be talking about Amendment 4 in Florida is going to hurt Florida Republicans. Don't go away. We'll be right back with attorney Elad Hakim discussing that issue.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to the Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get the Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The secret war is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Just about wraps it up for today. I always enjoy spending this time with you. But for right now, we are out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on TV and on radio.